Barry, the police and emergency services use a system called Tetra or airwaves. I've read a lot about this system. There's been lots of complaints. People are getting sick near the transmitters. Is it a good system?
It's a very interesting question and a very good question. I was initially called in and commissioned by the Police Federation to write the first report, the first safety report on the Tetra communication system, which is now on the internet. I condemned the system as far too dangerous for two reasons. One, that they tend to carry the system here, and it is transmitting through the brain and through the neck. And some of the police do 14-hour shifts. And secondly, the pulse frequency of Tetra, which is around 16 pulses a second, is too close to the brain's natural frequency, which is just over 17 pulses a second. The natural frequency, the beta frequency of the brain, is responsible for making decisions in emergency situations. And if you mess up that, you cannot make decisions. And the very job of the police, the ambulance and the fire brigade is to make emergency decisions in emergency situations. And you are affecting that one part of the brain that they need. The other danger of that particular pulse frequency is that it is what's known as the cyclotronic resonance frequency of the calcium in the body. Now, what that means is that as the Tetra is going through, the calcium is being knocked from the surface of cells, and the calcium keep the cell stable. The calcium is replaced by potassium, which only has a single bond as opposed to the calcium's double bond. And the potassium will cause the cell to leak. And I think we now have something like 18 experiments showing this. So you now have what's known as calcium efflux, or a calcium leakage in officers wearing Tetra. I said it is far too dangerous, A, because of the pulse frequency, B, because of the microwaves going through the neck and the brain, and it should not be allowed. The chairman of the Police Federation and the staff who commissioned me to write a report, the chairman retired. He was replaced by a lady who sacked me, said I didn't exist, said I wasn't commissioned to write the report, called a conference that I was allowed to attend but not allowed to speak. She called a conference and her opening words were, "Nothing is going to stop Tetra." The government doctor stood up at the same meeting and said to the police union, "If you don't like it, resign. That is your choice." And that is in fact an illegal thing to say. This is illegal. But that was it. They published papers to say I didn't exist and that I'm mad and I'm wrong and everything else you can read about me. And recently, only this year, another union that represents mostly the ambulance and the fire brigade, but some police officers, usually special branch, they commissioned me to write an updated report. And in this report, which the first report is on the internet, this report, which was highly confidential for the legal department of the union, I quoted our government scientist saying how much you can expect to develop a brain tumour compared with the radiation you are getting for an ordinary person. And that's based on what is known as average use. And you'll probably be surprised to learn that average safe use for a mobile phone is considered to be about 20 minutes spread over a whole week. Now, police officers have these for 14 hours a day. So when you start looking at the maths, and my first degree, I specialised in nuclear and atomic physics. Now, when you look at the maths, what the Chief Government Science Officer is actually showing is that today we could have as many as 7,000 plus lady and gentleman officers walking around with slow-growing tumours. They are not told of the warning of this. They are not told of the dangers. They do not know the risk they are taking. They do not know that there could be 7,000 of them with slow-growing tumours, and they will only find this out when they come up to retirement age. And this is the government's figures, not mine. I actually had it at slightly less. And this is being kept from them. 7,000 tumours, which is absolutely incredible. I wrote an open letter, which anybody can read on the internet. It's open letter to the Police Federation. And I said, this was last Christmas, and I said, in the last 3 months, I believe, I have had 5 lady police officers come to my house, all independent of each other, and they have all had neck tumours where the transmitter is. And when I say to them, have you approached your federation? They all say they cannot because the federation will not help them. They are victimised. They are bullied. Any police officer who raises this is very heavily brought down by senior officers and threatened with being moved, threatened with losing their job. There are bullying tactics from the government and the senior officers on the officers. And the Police Federation published a document that I have referenced in my latest report, and it actually says, we know that this system is now dangerous and causing these ill effects, but as it is up and running, we cannot do anything about it. And I think, well, why are the police paying you to represent them if you're not? And the other thing I find incredible, and I've got the documents for this, and I've referenced them in this document, a government document actually says that a scientific experiment should be carried out on the police and the emergency services because they are all young, they have a well-defined work pattern, they are fit, and they will be ideal for an experiment to see how much cancer and how much brain damage is caused by this system. And they actually say we cannot rule out that some officers will develop cancer and some will develop brain damage from the system. And then we get another message, which I've also got, that says, we welcome, this is from our government's radiation board, we welcome the study that you have set up on the police officers. So they are a living experiment for cancer and brain damage from this system. And the government have written it, put it in writing.